some western and central areas later, a low of 2 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Holly Jones.
This is LBC. From Global, leading Britain's conversation, the Nigel Farage Show.
Mr. Nigel Farage.
Thank you, Donald. One more sleep. Yep, just one more sleep until Brexit. I'm really excited about that. Wow. Never thought it would happen, but it is. Of course, it changes our position in the world. It means we're going to be free to do trade deals with whomsoever we choose. We're going to leave regulatory alignment, according to the Prime Minister, and that opens up even more options. But thoughts today have been beginning to turn to those relationships, and particularly with the United States of America. US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo in London today, and thrilled to say, an exclusive interview with my colleague Ian Dale here on LBC, which is going to be played in full from 7. But there are a couple of aspects of it that we can talk about before it goes live with Ian Dale. And I'm particularly interested still in this Huawei decision. You know, we know the Australians think it's a terrible idea. The Americans have been lobbying like crazy. We even had Senator Scott from Florida on this programme earlier on this week, and yet Boris Johnson has made, his government, the decision that they've made. So Pompeo in London today, meeting Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab, speaking at a policy exchange event, and to talk us through those events and to try and spot what tensions there may be there, I'm joined by LBC's Westminster correspondent, Ben Kentish. Ben, talk us through the afternoon.
Well, we've long known that the US is very opposed to this decision. The interesting thing today, Nigel, was the extent to which Mike Pompeo reiterated that. Now he held talks with Dominic Raab yesterday and spoke, as you mentioned, a think tank event with him this morning. Pretty uncompromising in his opinion on the decision Boris Johnson's government made. Said it carried a very great risk, that it was necessary for the UK to relook at the decision, and said it was for countries that are allies, to ask each other, what the heck are you doing? So pretty strong phrasing there from Pompeo. A glimmer of hope from the government when he said that the trade deal, there has been some suggestion that this could put a US trade deal at risk. He seemed to suggest that wasn't the case, and he also said that he was confident that the US and the UK would find a way to work together to resolve this difference, was his phrase.
How convincing was that?
Well, not very. I think that the government would take heart from the trade deal element.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in a sense that a trade deal has to do with tariff regulations, mutual recognition of standards, that kind of thing. Whereas the Huawei issue is about intelligence sharing and data, and data as well, isn't it? So I guess they're separate things.
It is, and he was asked specifically, will this affect the Five Eyes security sharing arrangements? Seems to suggest it wouldn't. He said the US wouldn't put its data anywhere, thought it was unsafe, but of course the UK has been very clear that this 5G network won't be involved with the transmission of secure data. However, as you mentioned, that exclusive interview with Ian Dale tonight, Mike Pompeo appeared to suggest that he thought British people's health records could be placed at risk by the involvement of Huawei and 5G, and we can have a little listen to what he had to say.
Huawei, you've been talking about that today. On a scale of 1 to 10, how disappointed were you with the decision that was announced on Tuesday?
Oh, that's a great question, one I'm not going to answer.
I knew you wouldn't.
Look, we said we were disappointed. We view the intrusion of the Chinese Communist Party into information technology systems as a very great risk, national security risk, as well as a core privacy risk. If your health records are on a system that belongs and is controlled by the Chinese Communist Party, that's not something you'd probably choose in the first instance. And so we are looking forward to working with our United K partners on the security elements of this, and then working alongside them to develop what we think about this as trusted networks. It's not about Huawei. It's about ensuring that the information that we put our citizens' data on is secure and safe.
But you have presumably been lobbying Boris Johnson and Dominic Raab on this during your trip here.
we had hoped that they would follow our lead and ban Huawei products from their marketplace. That's right.
But isn't the problem here now that Britain has given cover to Germany and Canada to do the same thing?
Well, just as with the United Kingdom, I hope they'll make their own sovereign decision. They'll make the choices they think are in the best interest of their own people. Our view of the technology and of the data is that putting this Chinese technology inside of these systems is something that is very difficult to mitigate. The United Kingdom came to a slightly different conclusion. Now we have a responsibility to do two things. One, to continue to talk to them about the risks as we see them so they can continue to develop their plans and policies. And then we have an obligation to protect American information that might travel across these systems.
The key line there, really, Mike Pompeo saying it would be very, very difficult to mitigate the risks of Huawei and therefore not worth the candle. Now, it's not just the US that has issues with this decision, Nigel. Condemnation, more of it today from Conservative MPs in Parliament. Bob Seeley MP saying there needed to be a public inquiry into how we've messed this up so badly. And Tobias Ellwood, the new chair of the Defence Select Committee, calling for a time cap on Huawei's involvement.
And these are very loyal Conservatives. I mean, these are not the awkward squad, are they?
They're not. And interestingly, they're both MPs with significant defence experience. Bob Seeley's done a lot on the threats from Russia, and Tobias Ellwood, of course, former military. So more warning signs there for number 10 that the row about this is not set to go away anytime soon.
Very interesting. Thank you very much, Ben. Well, look, Pompeo, he tried to use some conciliatory words, said maybe it could be resolved, but actually he's really saying we've made a very bad decision and the Americans don't like it, and they're not going to allow any security information to be used across networks they do not trust, and that sounds worrying to me. Now, you may say, hang on a second, Nigel, you believe in sovereignty. Why on earth should we bow down to what President Trump and Mike Pompeo and the Americans want? But it isn't just the Americans, it's the Australians, it's many of our other allies who are concerned. And did you notice that Pompeo said specifically the Chinese Communist Party? What he's saying is that Huawei, and we don't know who owns Huawei, we don't know anything about their structure, but basically what he's saying is this is a front for the Chinese government. And do you remember the caller I had on the other night? The guy that came on using a pseudonym, who said he was a merchant banker from Shanghai and indicated he was involved in big deals and said, all of my staff spy on me and report to the Chinese Communist Party. I said, why on earth are you there? He said, I earn a lot of money, which I guess was at least an honest answer. On reflection, and this is a very difficult question to ask, but who do you side with on this? Do you side with Boris Johnson's decision, or do you think the Americans are right to be nervous about Huawei? I'm not asking you to be unpatriotic. I'm asking you, whose judgment on Huawei's involvement in 5G is right? Let me know on 0345 6060 973. 84850 is the text number. And, of course, you can tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC. I would only involve Nokia and Ericsson with 5G, so it's my way or the highway. Very good, Peter, in Lancing. Must admit, I was approached today, I can't mention his name, but I was approached today by a big telecoms entrepreneur who I'm going to have a meeting with them next few days, who made the point that just because Huawei were involved in the development of 3G and 4G does not mean they need to be used in the development of 5G, and that there are, and Peter mentions Nokia, Ericsson, but Samsung, of course, also would be very happy to work with the British government. And you know something? Even if the cost is more, because I think we all believe that Huawei are prepared to do this at a loss to gain at least influence, maybe more, you make your own mind up. It seems to me there are willing partners out there that we could have used. Let's go to Charlotte, a regular caller from the Forest of Dean. Good evening, Charlotte. Nice to speak to you again.
Good evening, Nigel. How are you?
One more sleep, Charlotte. So I'm quite pleased, really. Yeah, but that's a separate.
I know,
but it's
and kudos to you, Nigel. It was you what done it, as they say.
It's a separate subject. So
I know
this big decision, Charlotte. Where does your heart lie? Does it lie with what Pompeo was saying today, or with what Boris Johnson and Dominic Raab are saying?
I mean, personally, I would back the US because I don't think that we should be, as he said, we shouldn't be allowing Chinese communists to access our system on any level, even if they say it's low level. I think the decision wouldn't have been as hard if Huawei, the English end, at least hadn't been stuffed with a load of Cameron cronies, which makes me feel that Boris's judgment isn't particularly good anyway.
Well, let's just remind ourselves, Charlotte, when we look at people that have served over the last few years on the UK advisory board to Huawei. We see former senior CBI people. We see former senior civil servants. We see former bosses of big companies who've been ennobled. And, let's face it, David Cameron is an official interlocutor between the British and Chinese governments. I mean, it may sound a bit tough, Charlotte, but I think our political establishment's been bought with Chinese money.
I have a feeling that we have, and this is why I have no faith in Boris at all, because I always had my suspicions about him, Brexit or no Brexit, and I think this is an absolutely dreadful decision, and it's not very good statecraft on his behalf, and I don't see how it is going to benefit any of us, especially when, which makes me laugh, they accuse Trump of being in the pay of the Russians, but for some reason he doesn't want the communist Chinese to access the telecoms business. So, it's all a crock of lies from start to finish, because Trump is very against doing it. And quite frankly, I would rather side with Donald Trump.
OK, Charlotte, you've made the point very clearly. And Charlotte, they're not being unpatriotic, just saying the British government have made a bad decision. Ollie in Basingstoke says, but surely we have to get value for money for the taxpayer. Yes, Ollie, we do, which is why HS2 is an equally shocking decision in my view, although I expect that may well get approved in the next few days. Who's to say? Sharon says, we've been talking about 5G for 3 years. How come we've not developed our own network in that time? Well, according to my telecoms engineer, because we haven't really tried. He thinks there are ways forward. I'm not saying he's right, but he's a guy who's been very successful in many fields. Johnny says America has the right to protect themselves just as we do. We are risking our security. America are not. Well, someone else there you see siding very much with the Mike Pompeo view. The USA for me, I get from Caroline in Hants. Mike Pompeo, what a statesman. Wish we had someone like this gentleman within our parliament. The man is loyal, eloquent, knowledgeable, patriotic, worldly, and knows and understands politics. What a guy, says Caroline. I have to say, Caroline, I have met Mike Pompeo, and you know what? He is pretty impressive. I really do think that. So who's got this right? Is it the British government or is it the USA to say that it's a bad deal? This is the Nigel Farage Show. This is LBC and it's 6:15 and time for the news headlines with Holly Jones.
The US Secretary of State has revealed to LBC during his only UK broadcast interview he's in Britain to fire the starting gun on post-Brexit trade talks. A flight leaving the Chinese city of Wuhan, the site of the coronavirus outbreak, will head back to the UK tonight, carrying 150 British citizens. A teenager's been charged with murdering a 16-year-old stabbed to death at a railway station in South London. LBC weather: gales in Scotland and North East England tonight will ease, many areas becoming dry for a time before rain returns to some western and central areas later, a low of 2 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Dave Goff. There are queues on the M25 anti-clockwise. 2 lanes are closed because of an accident after junction 6 for Godstone. Anti-clockwise on the M25, there are also long delays going from junction 8 for Reigate to Clackett Lane services because of roadworks. It's slow on the M1 southbound because of a breakdown at junction 5 for Watford. It's on the exit slip road. There are queues out of the Blackwall Tunnel northbound to the Bow interchange on the A12. That's because a car's broken down. On the underground, there's no service on the Jubilee line between Wembley Park and Stanmore, with severe delays on the rest of the line because of a signal failure. London Overground have severe delays between Sydenham and West Croydon because of an investigation. And South Eastern, they're running a reduced service at Cannon Street.
This is LBC.
Is this the exhilarating sound of a roller coaster doing the loop-de-loop? Or the thrill you could get by taking your family on a day out with the rewards from switching bank accounts? With the current account switch guarantee, you can bag yourself all sorts of goodies, like cash rewards to treat your family once in a while, and freebies that make you smile, or even help to make your money go the extra mile.
Anyone can get that just switched feeling. Just look out for the current account switch guarantee.
This is LBC.
People tell me I've got a baby face. My secret? Stay active. Do what you love. Personally, I love music and drinking tea. I do love my English tea. It kept me warm when I was sleeping rough.
City Hall has doubled its outreach workers. You can help people like John too. Search StreetLink London to connect a rough sleeper to the Mayor's new rapid response team. Whatever the weather, homeless people deserve better.
Moving to a McCarthy and Stone retirement community was a big change. At last, I was able to spend more time relaxing and making new friends. I already feel 10 years younger.
Research shows that moving to a retirement community can help roll back the years. Reserve an apartment with us by the end of February and you can save up to £5,000 on selected properties or get 1 month's rent free. For your nearest development, call 0800 15 33 150 or visit mccarthyandstone.co.uk.
The high-quality kitchen you've dreamed of at a price well within your budget. That's Room Sense.
That's Room Sense.
The Room Sense January sale is now on, with 50% off our stunning kitchens and free appliances. Visit roomsense.co.uk today.
Quality at a price you can afford. That's Room Sense.
Minimum spend applies.
At Argos, our new range is out now, online and in our new catalogue. Transform your home with our new stylish furniture and homewares range. And join in the fun with this season's latest tech and toys. With Argos, you're good to go. Subject to availability.
When you're going to Heathrow for business or a break, we'll take you with no stress and plenty of style. WeKnowLondon.com's TfL licensed car transfer service is available on site at Heathrow Airport. Enjoy the ride in one of our fully electric luxury Jaguar I-Pace cars, and you could help with London's air quality. London to Heathrow is from just $49.99, which includes a £10 discount when using promo code LBC at the checkout. Book online now at WeKnowLondon.com. 2-hour advance booking subject to availability. T's and C's apply.
This is LBC, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
The problem with this Huawei debate is the government say that they will be allowed to have up to 35% of the peripheral infrastructure, but not the core. And we're told that's okay because it's only at the core where there are, going to be sensitive data issues. The Americans say it's the Chinese Communist Party, you can't trust them, Congress indicted them in 2019 for all sorts of breaches. And none of us, at least I don't, do you? I don't know what's right and what's wrong. I do not know whether being involved in the periphery means they could bug and somehow get data, I apologise, out of the core or not. I don't know. Does anybody really know? I'm not sure. I think my position is, why take the risk? And I'm going to go back and say it again. This is not America that impresses me with this. It's Australia, who've got this phenomenal financial link with Australia, and they, since 2012, have said, no way, Huawei. Let us go to Simon, who's a first-time caller to this show from Sevenoaks. Good evening, Simon.
Good evening, sir. A pleasure to speak to you, and welcome home.
I know. That's it. I handed in my security pass just after the show last night, Simon. I stood on the steps of the European Parliament, handed in my security pass, said a few words of goodbye, and that's it. And I got on the first Eurostar this morning, which actually getting on the first Eurostar this morning after last night's dinner was quite some effort.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah.
And I sort of got this feeling, sort of goodbye to all that. It's all over. Thank goodness. Simon.
Job done, sir.
Job done. Well, yeah, there's more to come afterwards, but we've broken the back of it, that is for sure. Simon, how do you feel about this question?
Well, to be honest, I think that our security services are probably one of the best, if not the best, on the planet. So, to my mind, if they are confident that they can mitigate any threat posed, then I'm willing to trust them. And I think the mood music that's coming out of the likes of Washington and so forth is more a question of the ongoing trade war between the US and China than it is anything else.
Well, that is possible, Simon. That is possible. And, the Trump administration are very, very worried about China in many ways. But, Simon, let me put this to you. The Australians have the same concerns, even deeper concerns. They've banned them being involved since 2012.
Yeah, well, there's no doubt there are concerns there. But then you have to look at the big picture. I mean, are we using this as a form of soft power to get into the Chinese to make a more lucrative trade deal with them?
Yes, Absolutely, Simon. And I completely understand. Whatever I think about China and its human rights record and many other things,
Well, if you've got soft power, then surely you can influence that. If you completely cut them off at the knees and say you're not having any involvement, then you have no influence whatsoever.
Well, let me put it to you, Simon. They're influencing us more than we're influencing them.
I would agree.
You know,
I mean, we've
when
got
they
a
buy
massive
off,
trade deficit with them. And,
massive trade deficit, and they're buying off. They're buying off former senior civil servants, former big businesses, and former politicians. I mean,
well, that I disagree with. I mean, I don't think just because you're a former politician you get a lucrative future career because you may be perceived to have some form of influence over the future journey that our country's going to take.
Simon,
maybe that's something you could broach in the future. Now you're unemployed, sir.
Yes, that's right. As of 11 o'clock tomorrow, I will at last successfully have been the turkey that voted for Christmas. Simon, you've got trust in our security services. I understand that. I'm still not sure it's worth the risk, but I thank you very much indeed for your call. Philip is a first-time caller to LBC. Philip, what made you pick up the phone?
Yeah. I'm kind of in line with Simon, really. I trust the security services to obviously have done the due diligence on the review and the rest of it. And as you say, it's peripheral network, effectively, which is the infrastructure that our telecoms providers will effectively utilise. And as such, it's down to the telecoms providers to secure our data while it's in the transit, between you picking up your phone or using your messaging and typing what you want to type to your friend.
Yeah.
It's down to the telecoms providers to secure the data while it's transiting that network. And, that's why really it kind of falls onto the Telefonica's O2s and EEs and the rest of them then that are utilising that network to make sure our data, while it's transiting all these high-risk vendors' systems, to ensure that if they did get onto them, all they would see is jargon, effectively. It should be encrypted in a way.
And what if, Philip? What if there is a weakness in? Let's not speculate on a company. That would be unfair and wrong. But what if there is a weakness within the systems of one of those providers? And if and we don't know, but if Huawei are a front for the Chinese Communist Party, I mean, Philip, what I'm saying to you, what I'm arguing is, why would we take the risk? What's the upside? What's the upside of Huawei? Come on.
Well, it's clearly going to be the cost implications, right? So, the cost of the 5G units that they're selling are obviously a lot cheaper than the likes of Cisco and the other brands that are predominantly made in the US and the rest of it. So it will be down to cost. And I mean, like you say, we've been going on about 5G. I mean, the infrastructure of our telephony network in this country is probably one of the poorest in Europe, really.
Oh, it's shocking. It's shocking.
So, we've got to make the jump because we need to improve the infrastructure that we have. We're still running on stuff from,
Philip, I get that. And I have to say, last year I spent a lot of time in the north of England, the Midlands, north of England, and, going up the M1 when I could use a mobile phone virtually all the way to Leeds 15, 20 years ago, and now it keeps cutting out. So we clearly have got problems with capacity. I get that. So, Philip, you rest happy with the government's decision, yeah?
On their advice from all of the security services.
All right. Okay, fine. Well, there's two there saying they're happy with it. Brian on Facebook is a lot more sceptical. He says 5G is a weapon, and you know it. What he means is the Chinese will use it. Lee says the US is just jealous because they want to be the main ones spying on us. And I get also, is this the same USA that was caught spying on our allies a few years ago? To some extent, all governments do spy on each other, and we have found that out. And it is, it is a sort of grubby underworld. But is spying exactly the same as potentially accessing the data of virtually every single individual in the country? I think, and I'll suggest to both of you, that they are two different things. Dan is another first-time caller to LBC from Monmouth. Dan, good evening to you.
Good evening to you, Nigel. I'm going to say what a pleasure it is to talk to you, sir.
Well, pleasure to talk to you. Now, you've never phoned LBC before, so what...
I know, it's a bit of a treat.
So what got you to pick up the phone tonight?
To be honest, Nigel, I'm pretty astounded that Boris has decided to go with Huawei because, in my own opinion, being a leader, you need to bring people together. We need to be bringing our allies together, because these are the allies we need to do trade agreements with after we leave the EU. Boris should be leading his party to bring the party together, because ultimately he needs to win those seats again in the north that they've lent him his vote.
Yep.
And I'm worried that he's going to divide his party, and then 5 years down the line we end up with a Labour government because of Boris's careless leadership.
So is this diplomatic stupidity, Dan?
That's what I think it is, yes. I mean, I understand that people... You know,
although Dan, let me just put one other counterpoint to you.
Yeah.
The counterpoint is we shouldn't bow down before Donald Trump and do everything he asks us to do. That's what people argue.
Yeah, and I fully get that argument, but the problem with a lot of that argument people with Donald Trump is they just say, oh, I don't like Donald Trump. They don't look at the good things that Trump has done for America, and people make their opinions, but they make uneducated opinions. They don't take the time to look.
No, well, do you know, Dan, actually many opinions are fairly uneducated in life. But Dan, thank you for ringing LBC. That's great. Oh, I love this from Dan in Huntington. Better the devil you know than the dragon you don't. We know the American devil. No to Huawei. It's high time we tightened the relationship between us and our younger, bigger brother. Oh, Dan, if you went to Washington, D.C. and called them the younger brother, they would get very, very upset indeed. And we'd all be back to 1812 and burning down the White House and all the rest of it. Miguel says the owner of the hardware can decrypt any encryptions passed through their components. Well, Miguel is basically saying that our two callers who were comfortable with the assessment of our security services are wrong, because what Miguel is saying, even though that flew-thrower data is up to the individual providers, Miguel is arguing that the people who own the hardware can decrypt the encryptions. Now, again, I don't know the truth of this. You listening to me right now don't know the truth of this. I suspect Boris Johnson doesn't know the truth of this. And the Americans, they don't know the truth of this, but they're saying, why take the risk? And I'm with them on this decision and not the British government. Sorry, I don't want to be anti the UK in any way at all, particularly at this special moment in our nation's history, but I really wonder, why are we taking this risk? You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. It is 6:30 and time for the news with Holly Jones.
The US Secretary of State says there will be contentious issues around agriculture during post-Brexit trade talks during his only UK broadcast interview on LBC. Mike Pompeo has suggested chlorinated chicken will be part of discussions on the day before Britain leaves the EU. You can hear his exclusive interview with Ian Dale at 7 o'clock this evening. British people returning on a flight from the Chinese city of Wuhan tomorrow will be moved to a health facility on the Wirral for quarantine. The flight leaves the city at the centre of the coronavirus outbreak tonight, carrying 150 British nationals. The inquiry into the Grenfell Tower fire has heard firms involved in the refurbishment are as much to blame for the deaths as if they'd pulled the trigger of a gun. A lawyer representing victims told the hearing they promoted their dangerous products in the pursuit of money. The firms deny responsibility. LBC weather: gales in Scotland and the northeast tonight will ease. Many areas becoming drier for a time before rain returns to some western and central areas later, a low of 2 degrees.
This is LBC.
After 3.5 years.
Dare to dream that the dawn is breaking on an independent, united kingdom. Let June the 23rd go down in our history as our Independence Day.
With the country and government still wrestling over the result, was it ever going to happen?
The ayes to the right, 202. The noes to the left, 432.
Theresa May has just suffered the largest ever defeat of any British Prime Minister in history. Where does her government go from here?
But after election 2019, finally, some clarity.
Let's get Brexit done.
The final countdown is on to Brexit. This Friday, Nigel Farage will take your calls from 6 and then join me, Nick Ferrari, for a special programme on Brexit night. And if Parliament won't play the bongs of Big Ben, then I will. This Friday on LBC.
How much money will you get when you sell your car?
11,000. 12,000.
12,600.
£13,000.
Wouldn't it be great if you could see offers from online buyers and specialist car dealers all in one place? Motorway.co.uk is the comparison site to sell your car. With Motorway, it's easy to compare offers and find your best deal. You could get up to £1,000 more. Go to motorway.co.uk, the easy way to sell your car for more.
Motorway.co.uk.
When it comes to music, I've heard it all. Pink Floyd, Sean Paul, Slipknot. But in the Which Test Lab, hearing isn't enough. When we test headphones, we really listen. Not just to the music, but to the stuff that gets in the way. The traffic, the chatter, all that. Mind the gap. We simulate the loudest commute to find you the headphones that cancel out the noise. So you know we're only recommending the best.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
My lorry's already delivering on the low emission zone's tougher standards that come into effect across Greater London from the 26th of October 2020 to help clean up our toxic air. Diesel engine heavy lorries, buses, coaches, motorised caravans, horse boxes and large vans and minibuses all need to meet the low emission zone's new Euro 6 standard. Make sure you're on board with these changes, like me.
Search low emission zone to check your vehicle. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
You can always trust that song about a little shark to get the kids in the bath. But all it takes is a bit of faulty plumbing to set off the bedtime waterworks. Thankfully, at trustedtrader.com, you can hunt out plenty of vetted, reviewed, reliable professionals in an abundance of trades. Like a plumber who'll rescue bath time. And just like that, it's safe to go back in the water.
At Argos, our new range is out now, online and in our new catalogue. Transform your home with our new stylish furniture and homewares range. And join in the fun with this season's latest tech and toys. With Argos, you're good to go. Subject to availability.
GCSEs, A-levels.
For exam success without the stress, only one name stands out. Justin Craig. A Justin Craig Easter course kickstarts revision, consolidates knowledge, boosts confidence and improves exam technique. With over 30 years' experience, Justin Craig has helped more than 100,000 students secure their university place. For Easter revision course details, visit justincraig.ac.uk. Justin Craig. Just in time.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC, The Nigel Farage Show.
Now, one of the reasons that the government have gone with Huawei is apparently it is going to be cheaper to get some of the hardware from them than it would be from other companies, and that it also could be good for business. So money, a really key factor, and yet, Sajid Javid, the Chancellor Exchequer, is reported to have thrown his support behind HS2 as he met with Boris Johnson today to discuss the project. Grant Shapps, the Secretary of State for Transport, has said we won't have to wait long for a decision. Can I remind you that we started off with an initial estimate for the cost of HS2 of 32 billion. It then went at 56 billion to 88 billion. We're now at 106 billion and rising fast. 106. No, I didn't say million. I said billion. And we understand that Boris Johnson will probably approve it. Anybody that thought you were going to get a radical government under Boris Johnson can forget it. It's a continuation of everything we saw under David Cameron and Theresa May. It had better be different on Brexit. I think still it probably will be very different on Brexit. But on these decisions, everything continues. And yet, isn't it funny? Because I made a really big issue of HS2 in the European elections last year and thereafter. And then we hear the Tories are going to have a review of HS2, and now it looks like they're going to approve it. You can make your own minds up on that one. So, Huawei, are the Americans right to be deeply concerned, or should we trust our security services? Let us ask Peter in Warrington. Good evening, Peter.
Evening, Nigel. How are you?
Welcome. I'm well. So,
well done today with your closing statement.
Oh, in the European Parliament last night. Yes.
Indeed, yeah.
Yes, that's, I have to say, on social media, been going extraordinarily well. Peter, on this, who do you side with?
I side with Trump. I think we need to form our own intranet and trading bloc with the USA, Canada, the UK, Australia, New Zealand, and probably even Ireland. And my calculations are that's a population of around 470 million people.
It's about the same size as the European Union, then.
Yeah, it's big enough to do it, and we can make our own infrastructure, build our own software. We don't need the Chinese for this kind of stuff. We're smart enough to do it ourselves, and that's the route I would go down.
So
why
if we're smart enough, Peter, well, why risk it? I agree with you. But if we're smart enough, why haven't we done it?
I don't know. You for vested interest, perhaps. People exploiting the system and making money from it. I think we just don't need these other countries to...
As I say, what you've said to me today is what this big entrepreneur said to me this morning. He said we could do this and work with partners that weren't Chinese, and we would very much be the lion's share of it. So your thinking and his very similar. Thank you for that. Catherine says, we, the UK voters, do not want China spying on us and gathering up our personal data. It's not guaranteed, Catherine, that they will spy on us and they will gather up our personal data, but equally we can't say that they won't. Andrea says, sounds like HS2 is oven ready. Very, very good indeed. We shouldn't, says Graham, throw our lot in totally with the Chinese. We should, or totally in with the Americans. No, look, I agree with that. You know, and I think if you had to trust one or the other, I'd trust America and not China. And I suspect a vast majority of listeners to this now would make that decision. Some of you say you trust the view of our intelligence services, but they've got a few things wrong in the past. Is this the same intelligence services that told us that Saddam Hussein could basically blow the world up in the next 45 minutes? The dodgy dossier. You know, I mean, not sure the track record's perfect. Hey, maybe I'm being too sceptical. James is calling from Thurrock. Good evening, James.
Good evening. You're a legend, mate. Well done.
Well, that's very sweet of you. Now, I've had callers on tonight, James, saying, look, our security services think it's fine. They're in the periphery, Huawei, not in the core. It's all fine. Do you agree with that?
No. Look, I think Boris has made a lot of promises during the election. He wants to be seen to be doing well. Mm-hmm. He's promised broadband for everyone and the 5G and all the rest of it. Mm-hmm. Now, I think he wants to get these in for two reasons. One, for the speed of it. It's ready to go, and they can get it set up quick. The other thing is that it's cheap. But you've got to ask yourself, why is it cheap? Why do they doing us this massive favour, giving us all this stuff for such a cheap price? What's in it for them? That's one of the main things. And the reason why I side with Trump on this is that Trump, as you know, is draining the swamp in America. And that includes the three-letter agencies over there. There are people within those ranks of those agencies. Don't get me wrong, most of them are good people, but within the rank and file. But as we've seen with these trials and all these things that are going on in America, there's a lot of dodgy people involved in the three-letter agencies, and I dare say it's the same over here. So what is all this connection with Chinese money and David Cameron and all? There's some dodgy business going on here. And they're putting our data, our pictures of our kids' photos, our children's information, our information in the hands of these people for money.
Well, at risk, James, the argument is not that it's a slam dunk guarantee that every single text message you send to whoever you may send them to, James, will finish up in the hands of the Chinese. It's the question that there is a risk of it, isn't there?
It's definitely a risk. I mean, we heard recently about one of these apps where if you take a photo of it and it was getting sent to Russia. So, these are facts. So there's something going on here, and there's certain people involved within our security services, and not all of them are on our side, or they've sold out. Until we get to the bottom of it.
How dangerous, James? How dangerous, James, do you think it would be if your data or anybody's data was in the hands of a Chinese?
Nowadays, data is the most valuable thing. It is the be-all and end-all these days, data. It's everything.
Actually, Pompeo said the other day that data was sovereignty in the modern world, and I actually have to say I do rather agree with that. James, thank you. Jerry is a first-time caller to LBC from Chudley in Devon. Good evening, Jerry.
Good evening, Nigel. Congratulations. Less than 30 hours to go.
One more sleep. I know. It's very exciting, I must say. Now, what about this decision, Jerry? What do you make of it?
Well, I believe that I don't trust the Chinese and I don't want them to have our data, but then America don't necessarily have a brilliant track record on looking after our data either. And the other thing, it was made earlier, my main point is that the encryption, we are world-leading encryptors and, and therefore we should apply that to making sure that all data, all of our messages are safe. They're just providing the infrastructure.
Well, that's fine, Jerry, but, there was some... And again, we're in technical detail here that nobody, it seems to me, can properly answer. But Miguel did send me a message earlier saying that he thought that those who provided the hardware could de-encrypt the encryptions from the providers. Do you know whether that's true or not?
We're the best at encryption, so therefore, that's what we're told, that's what we understand, and I believe it. I believe that we are. We're world leaders.
And what if the Chinese find the modern-day equivalent of the Enigma machine?
Well, there you go. Fair play to them if they do. But
Jerry.
Want our data. The Americans want our data as much as the Chinese, don't they? Because, like you said, it's sovereignty and power.
All right, so you trust our ability as encryptors.
I think we have to, whether it's Chinese infrastructure, European or American. I think we have to protect our own data.
All right, and basically you wouldn't trust anyone not to nick our data then?
No, I don't think we should trust anybody. We should control
that's a fair point.
the encryption ourselves.
Fine, that is a very logical point. Why trust anybody? Jerry, thank you very much indeed for that. Well, but I do make the point, the Enigma stunned our enemies in World War II. I don't know the technical answers to any of this. On YouTube, I get, how safe is our data in the hands of the USA? Look, I think Jerry just made that point beautifully, whoever you are. We should try to make sure that our own data is sovereign, and we do that through encryption. But there's something about the fact that this company, which may well be a front for the Chinese Communist Party, we are allowing to help build our 5G network. I do not think it makes any sense at all. Sheridan says, because of the situation that you have helped to create, we now have to walk a fine line, not upsetting any country. Hence why we have to deal with Huawei. Sheridan, that is complete and utter rubbish, all right? You can deal with China. You can deal with countries, but like the Australians, make a measured, sensible choice that this is one area that concerns national security and you're not prepared to take any risk at all. Seems logical to me. This is the Nigel Farage Show. It is 6:45. Time for the news headlines with Holly Jones.
The US Secretary of State says he's confident most of the details of a trade deal with the UK post-Brexit can be agreed by the autumn in his only UK broadcast interview on LBC. British people returning on a flight from the Chinese city of Wuhan, the centre of the coronavirus outbreak, tomorrow will be moved to a health facility on the Wirral for quarantine. A man's been found guilty of attempting to steal a copy of the Magna Carta and causing more than £14,000 worth of damage to the display case at Salisbury Cathedral. LBC weather, gales in Scotland and northeast England tonight will ease. Many areas becoming dry for a time before rain returns to some western and central areas, a low of 2 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Dave Goff. There are delays on the M25 anti-clockwise. All traffic's being held because of an accident at Junction 6 for Godstone, so they're accused from Junction 8 for Reigate. Anti-clockwise on the M25 is also slow because the car's broken down. That's between Junction 25 for Enfield and Junction 24 for Potters Bar. It's slow on the M1 southbound because of a breakdown at Junction 5 for Watford. It's on the exit Slip Road. They're accused out of the Blackwall Tunnel northbound to the Bow interchange on the A12 because the car's broken down. It's very slow New Malden on the A3 northbound. 2 lanes are shut because of an accident at Shannon Corner. And on the underground, there's no service on the Jubilee line between Willesden Green and Stanmore, with severe delays on the rest of the line.
Coming up at 7 on LBC, Ian Dale.
Do not go anywhere, because if you do, you'll miss my UK broadcast exclusive interview with the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo.
Ian Dale on LBC.
Jennifer from Glasgow writes, I first set eyes on you when my brother brought you home. I wanted you. I didn't care what he'd say. He left the room. We couldn't stop ourselves. Delicious. Apart from the gherkins. Your 2 juicy patties, crisp lettuce, onions, cheese and Big Mac sauce. Utter perfection.
You can now spend even longer with the taste you love with the Grand Big Mac, but only until the 24th of March. Served after 11 a.m, subject to availability, participating restaurants only.
The Vodafone Big Winter Sale is now on. Now you can get average speeds of 63 megabits per second of super-fast fibre broadband for only £20 a month for selected pay monthly customers. Just one of the amazing offers in the Vodafone Big Winter Sale. Go online or in store today. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Prices may change. 18-month term subject to credit acceptance and availability. Ends 30th of January. 61% of Superfast 2 customers receive sync speed above 63 megabits per second. Visit vodafone.co.uk/broadband.
The spacious new Vauxhall Vivaro is big on cargo space, so you won't fill it up as often. It also has class-leading fuel economy, so you, won't fill it up as often. The new Vauxhall Vivaro. Limited stock now available for only £229 a month and £229 initial rental, excluding 20% VAT on a 2-year lease. Other rental periods available. Search Vivaro offer and hurry down to your local retailer. Vauxhall carries British business. Business users only. Initial rental of $228.96 plus 23 months at $228.96. Contract hire on new Vivaro edition L1 H1 1.5 Turbo D 100 PS. 20,000 total contracted miles. Limited availability subject to status. T's and C's 18 plus. Price excludes 20% VAT. You will not own the vehicle. Vauxhall Finance PLC trading as free to move lease.
Many people find their memory changes as they age. For most, it's a natural part of aging. For some, however, it could be an indication of something more serious. For some, it could be Alzheimer's disease. St Pancras Clinical Research is conducting a trial of an investigational drug for early-stage Alzheimer's. If you are between the ages of 50 and 90, have a study partner and would like more information, please contact St Pancras Clinical Research at stpancrasclinicalresearch.com. That's St Pancras Clinical Research at stpancrasclinicalresearch.com to hear more about this study.
Word in the woods is that 3 little pigs are looking to sell their homes quick. They seem to be in a spot of bother with a big bad wolf called Rick.
Come out, little piggies!
So they spoke to the friendly team at Property Rescue, who can offer a guaranteed sale in as little as 48 hours at a fair price and a cash advance if you need one. Fast forward to living happily ever after. Visit propertyrescue.co.uk. Property Rescue. Fast forward to sold.
My lorry's already delivering on the low emission zone's tougher standards that come into effect across Greater London from the 26th of October 2020 to help clean up our toxic air. Diesel-engined heavy lorries, buses, coaches, motorised caravans, horse boxes and large vans and minibuses all need to meet the low emission zone's new Euro 6 standard. Make sure you're on board with these changes. Like me.
Search low emission zone to check your vehicle. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC.
Well, the coronavirus is spreading. We now have a reported 170 deaths from it in China, and it's spread to every single province in China. At the moment, there is a big cruise ship docked at a port in Italy with no passengers being allowed off because one of them is suspected having a high temperature of perhaps carrying the coronavirus. And around about 200 British people are returning on a flight from the Chinese city of Wuhan. They'll be back here tomorrow, and they'll then be taken to a health facility on the Wirral where they will stay in isolation for 14 days, because that's the incubation period of this, to make sure they've not picked up the coronavirus. The flight takes off tonight. It was delayed because initially they could not get permission from the Chinese authorities to leave. Former Health Secretary Lord Andrew Lansley, he thinks the fortnight quarantine is essential.
Because otherwise there is a severe potential risk that one brings together people, increases the chance of their transmitting the infection from one to another, then brings them to the United Kingdom, and the transmission starts from there.
So he's making the point that it is the logical thing to do. I have to say, if I was one of those 200 people, you'd be pretty hacked off, wouldn't you, to be taken to somewhere on the Wirral. I think it's a sort of former military installation of some kind. But that's how seriously the government are taking it. And I have to say, that's probably... I'm going to praise them now. That's probably the right decision, even though it seems to be harsh. So, Huawei, is it the right call or the wrong call? Mike Pompeo, US Secretary of State, who you will be able to hear in an exclusive interview with LBC and Ian Dale, and that will play in about 10 minutes' time. Let's go, sticking on the Huawei subject, to Luke in Bromley. Luke, good evening.
Good evening, Nigel Farage. And may I just say it's a pleasure to say thank you very much for all you've done for this country regarding Brexit.
Well, thank you, dear boy. Thank you. It's very...
I'll certainly see you in Westminster Square.
So you're coming up to London tomorrow night, are you?
I think everyone is, aren't they?
Right. Well, I tell you what, I think there's going to be a very, very big crowd in Parliament Square tomorrow night, and the celebration kicks off at 9 and ends just after 11, and let's hope it doesn't rain. Now, Luke, tell me about the Huawei decision.
Okay, well, I wonder if this is perhaps one of Boris's taking a leaf out of Trump's book. Perhaps he knows as well as we do that it is a risk not worth taking, but perhaps he's using it as leverage to get a better deal from America, because then he can pull out last minute and use it as leverage.
Oh, Luke, if that's the way your mind works, I don't know how busy you are for the rest of 2020, but Boris's negotiating team with Monsieur Barnier needs somebody with a Machiavellian thought process. You could be just the person.
Nigel.
Yeah.
I'm a businessman. In fact, I won UK Entrepreneur of the Year about 9 weeks ago.
Did you?
And, yes, I did. Yeah,
wow.
For the UK Business Awards.
Well, congratulations. That's amazing.
Yes. And I've actually just been made Global Ambassador for Awards International, so I'll be travelling around the world talking about positive mental attitude and so on.
Fantastic.
Anything's possible. So, yes, of course, you have to think outside the box, and risk is not worth taking over. Look, we know that money doesn't come before risk, which is why we've come out of the EU, correct? And
yeah, but Luke, here's my problem, right? How many people in government, in Boris's team, think the way that you do, or are entrepreneurs?
Well, that's a good point.
I'm going to stay silent. I'm waiting for an answer, because I don't think there is one. There isn't one.
There may not be, but hopefully they listen to LBC, because there's plenty of people with common sense on here.
Well, yeah, thank goodness. I know it's like salvation some days, isn't it, listening to LBC? Luke, the point you make's fascinating, and if I thought there was even a 25% chance that is what Boris Johnson's government was doing, I think, wow, that's really clever. But Luke, all I see former bosses from the civil service and big business, and even a former Prime Minister, who are making money out of China. And I just feel that we've virtually been bought by them.
Well, Nigel, I hope that perhaps they can reconsider using this as an idea, because, to be honest, they would get perhaps a slightly bigger deal worth more from America if they said, you know what, we'll go with your American system or whatever, and but it's going to be big, and we expect big returns. We all do the same in business. You know yourself, you're a businessman.
Yeah, I love it. Luke, I love it. I love it. I love it. The idea is wonderful, and I hope somebody from Number 10 is listening. And Luke, congratulations on your award of Entrepreneur of the Year. That's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. That was really interesting, wasn't it? That was really interesting. Gosh, I hope that is what they're doing, but I don't think it is. Let's get a Jeremy, who's another first-time caller to LBC from Fulham. Good evening, Jeremy.
Hello, hi Nigel. Congratulations, fantastic result. I stood as a Brexit Party candidate in the election.
Oh, well done, you. Well
absolutely
done,
delighted with the result. Fantastic.
So you'll be celebrating in style tomorrow night, yeah?
I will be with you in Parliament Square. Yeah, definitely.
Fantastic. So, what about this decision? What do you make of it?
Well, actually, I agree with it to a certain extent.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he should have gone further. I think he should have not restricted it so much, but I understand the sensitivities of the Americans, and he needed to do something there. But
so the restriction. Let's just remind listeners, Jeremy, because things move on quickly. So the restriction was to 35% of the periphery. Yeah.
Yep, and it's quite complicated. He's laid down a series of conditions as to which parts of the network and how much Huawei equipment can be put in, and over what period of time it's going to be measured, and things like that. And that is to give other vendors an opportunity to get into the network, because Huawei is, according to a lot of my colleagues, I work in the cybersecurity industry in technology, and a lot of people I meet in the main telcos, who I meet on a regular basis, actually do not understand the decision or the pressure that came about to try and stop Huawei. Huawei is already in a lot of the networks, and they're doing a great job. And they tend to be, especially for 5G, well ahead of the competition. I mean, a lot of your listeners won't understand that we're actually already developing 6G technology.
I've heard that.
This 5G technology is going to be around for probably the next 10 years. Then we'll move to 6G.
So technologically, Huawei are good, and I'm listening to what you say. You work in the business, I don't. But is there a risk? Are they a front for the Chinese Communist Party, Jeremy?
Well, in terms of the risk, you have to understand this about the hardware and what happens to our messages. So you had callers on before who were talking about the messages and photos and other things, and they're going to get hacked over the network. Well, the security and the encryption is actually embedded in the hardware root of trust on the device and at the receiving device. And it goes over multiple networks all over the world. Those networks could be held by many different companies, but the encryption is end-to-end between those two devices. And it's incredibly secure. We know that because there have been instances where the FBI have tried to hack into devices, or GCHQ, and I think eventually they've managed to do it, but with enormous difficulty. Now, it doesn't really matter what the equipment is. People can put sniffers in, and you do understand, of course, that a lot of the technology, even if it's not Chinese Huawei, it could be American, it could be Scandinavian, who are big in this area. It's still manufactured in China.
Yeah, that point, Jeremy, absolutely. I've had that point during the week. Jeremy, thank you for that. And Jeremy, works in this and says it's all about encryption. I can't, the Americans, and if the Australians are so nervous, why are we doing this? But hey, great call. One more sleep. Just one more sleep until Brexit. It's terribly exciting. It's so exciting, in fact, that I'm going to come back here again tomorrow to LBC at 6 o'clock. I don't normally come in on Fridays, but I'll be here from 6 till 7, just before I head off to Parliament Square for a really, certainly for me, a big moment in my life, but a big moment in the nation's history. And LBC coverage then will continue at 7 o'clock with Andrew Pearce, and then from 10 o'clock, Nick Ferrari will do a special up through till midnight, and he'll play his own version of Big Ben because the government can't do it. But in the meantime, here's Ian Dale with an amazing exclusive interview.
So that's what it takes to get you in on a Friday, leaving the European Union.
Yeah, it's worked.
I wonder what it would take to get me in. Anyway, we do have an exclusive interview with the US Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo. I spoke to him a little earlier this afternoon at his hotel in central London. We covered a lot of ground. We talked about Brexit, obviously, the likelihood of a free trade deal. He had some, I have to say, slightly disappointing news from the government's point of view on that. We talked about Huawei. We talked about the Israeli peace plan and much else besides. So we'll be playing that out in a moment. If you go onto the LBC YouTube channel, you can watch that interview as we play it out live in audio as well. Just go to YouTube, type in LBC, and it will appear for you. We'll be talking about that for much of the programme tonight because, believe me, there's a lot to talk about.